You mentioned just before chronotypes, and that there is a biological basis for saying that you're a morning person or you're a night owl.
Yeah.
So what is the biology of a morning person exactly? What does that mean?
It's so interesting. So there's genetics. So we now know specific clock genes, and subtle changes in some of those clock genes can either speed up or slow down the clock and make you more of a morning person or an evening person. So there's genetics. So as somebody in the field once said, by their contribution to our genes, our parents are still telling us what time to get up and go to bed.
Is that your quote?
No, it's not. But I wish it were. I've used it a lot, though.
That's good.
And so there's genetics, there's age. And this is so interesting. From about the age of 10, some really beautiful work has been done in Toronto in this area. From about the age of 10, there's a tendency to want to go to bed later and later. So by the time you're in your late teens, early 20s, this is when we're our latest.
Okay.
Men tend to get later than women, and women peak. Their lateness peaks at about 19 and a half, and men about 21 or so.
Okay.
And they, on average, tend to be later. Then there's a slow move to want to go to bed earlier. The bottom line is that the time you're in your late 50s, early 60s, you're getting up and going to bed at about the time you got up and went to bed when you were 10. And the difference...
Really? That's interesting.
Yeah, and the difference is around 2 hours between somebody in their late 50s, early 60s and somebody in their late teens, early 20s. Certainly as a university student. I mean, I was very late. I mean, I would stay up half the night. Now I don't. I've become an old man and I'm sort of going to bed early and getting up early, but still relatively later than people of my age group.
Fair.
So you've got genetics, you've got age, and it's almost certainly associated with a change in the sex steroids, testosterone, estrogen, progesterone in women. And there's good sort of support for those changes. The third area, which is really important and often overlooked, is when you see light.
Okay.
So morning light advances the clock, makes you get up earlier. Evening light delays the clock, makes you get up later. Now, when we were all agricultural workers, we got symmetrical exposure to light, to dawn and dusk.
Right.
And so we were shift forward and then back again. And so we stayed aligned. Now, what many people experience in our modern society is only partial exposure to dawn or dusk. And this is a classic problem for teenagers and young adults. We did a study a few years ago looking at university students, and we found that the later the chronotype of the student, the less morning light they were exposed to, which would advance the clock, make them get up earlier, but they were getting late afternoon, evening light, which would delay the clock, make them go to bed later. So part of the issue is when you see light. So if you happen to be a late person,
right,
you can kind of nudge yourself a bit forward in time, set the alarm clock, get out there, get bright natural light if you can. If it's winter, then sit in front of a light box. So you've got genetics, you've got age, hormonal status, and of course you've got when you see light. And of course a fourth factor is social media, which is sort of driving you later. And many young people are immensely anxious. They know they know it's not a good idea to use social media in the early hours of the morning, but the consequence of not being connected to your peer group is terrifying for some. And so, some kids are up half the night, which leads me into napping, because what you find with young people is that they're going to sleep late, they're getting up early, the alarm clock is driving them out of bed. They're struggling through school, and many teachers, report that their students are actually falling asleep in the classroom.
Mm-hmm.
They then go home, and then they have a long sleep. And what that long sleep, relatively close to bedtime, means is you push back the pressure for sleep that night. So it's more difficult to get to sleep because you've had that long nap. And so you've got that additional societal interactions, social media, also interacting with those biological drivers, which drive particularly teenagers to later and later bedtimes. Now, the key thing is, these are all things that we can do something about.
Of course.
And that's, again, part of the message of Lifetime, which is, understanding the biology means that it empowers us to do something about it.